Hello, beautiful people. My name is Marika Gare, and this is the Inspiration Trilogy, a platform for women across the globe to share wisdom, advice, and just have some meaningful conversations. Bit tongue-tied there. Look, today's guest, we have Angela Smith, who's a functional integrative nutritional and wellness coach and mum of three. So welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you.
Look, it's great to have you here today. If for the listeners out there, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey and how you got to where you are?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Angela, although most people call me Ange. I sometimes feel like I'm in trouble if people call me Angela. So yeah, as you mentioned, I've got three children, although they're getting older now. So my youngest is 14, a boy, and then I've got two girls that are 19 and 22.
Wow.
And so my background is I'm a registered nurse and a midwife. So I've actually been in the health and wellness industry for over 25 years now. And, you know, being in the working with babies and mums was always my first love many years ago. Yeah, about 8 years ago or 10 years ago, actually, I moved overseas to France for a stint, and I got very sick over there.
Okay.
I got rheumatic fever, which is it actually stems from getting something called strep throat, which was untreated. I didn't know what I had, and
Yeah.
yeah, and so rheumatic fever affects the heart, and I was almost bedridden for nearly a year. So it was quite a stressful journey at the
Yeah.
time. And that led me into something I'd always been interested in, which was I've always been interested in wellness and looking after my body with nutritional health and alternative means of wellness. And so when I got back to Australia, I did some further postgraduate studies in nutritional medicine. And yeah, just in the last 8 years, I've been gradually increasing my professional scope to increase more sort of holistic, functional nutrition and integrative methods of wellness to be able to help people that are going through similar journeys. So not that it has to be similar in the same as my journey, but people that are struggling to get their previous level of health back
Yeah.
for whatever reason. And so that's really what's brought me to what I'm doing now. And you know, I'm very passionate about really trying to help people and people feel better, or you know, more vibrant again, have more energy and
Mm.
feel more like their old selves.
And you know what? There's talking to so many different people over the last, a short period, last few years with COVID and, heightened conditions of lots of other different things within the community. There's so many people that are struggling to get back to their vibrant self for whatever reason and whatever ailment or illness that they've had. So I think it's really important. It's something that's on everyone's minds at the moment. So look, as a mum of three and dealing with such an impactful health issues, how did you manage that with wellness and nutrition? What kind of tools did you use to help you through that?
Look, initially it was really difficult. We'd only been in a new non-English speaking country for 6 weeks.
Wow.
So I was actually living in France, which, as romantic as it sounds, it was quite difficult.
Yeah.
But I think initially in the very early stages when I was really unwell, I made friends with a guardian angel woman who was quite had a lot of contacts in the area, and it really showed, I guess, how beautiful humanity can be, even though I guess when we have people that are around us, if they're really unwell, you probably wouldn't think too much to help them out, make them a meal and that sort of thing.
Mm,
But when you have to accept it yourself, it's actually quite difficult.
it is,
I
yes.
think, you know, I was having people coming to the door every day with a meal,
Oh,
you know, warm clothes because it was going into winter and we hadn't even had the chance to go shopping yet. And so I think
Oh, wow.
I actually cried nearly every day. Someone would come to the door.
Oh, I think most people would. That's so beautiful to have a community to do that for you. That's
Yeah, and I think it really, not that I'd lost my faith in humanity, but it just really restored, my faith in, you know, just the beautiful people that are out there. So that
yeah.
was in the very early days. And then what was your initial question?
Just sort of focusing on how you navigated through that time, through the nutrition and wellness, and and making changes.
Yeah, so well, obviously, I had a lot of time to read because
Yeah.
I was spending a lot of time lying down, and I think it's hard to remember all of it in detail. But initially, I think I started doing a lot of meditation because I had so much time.
Yeah.
Um, so I was doing meditation just to help my mindset because I felt quite down that I was stuck in a new country and I was unwell and I couldn't do anything. And I'd had all these ideas of being able to explore France and do all these beautiful
Yeah.
things, and I wasn't able to do that. So, firstly, I was doing a lot of that. And then I got on to inflammation, and for many people out there, there's probably quite a few people that are aware that inflammation is really the basis of a lot of disease.
Yep.
And I came across something called the autoimmune protocol, which is a healing way of eating to help with inflammation in the body. So it decreases symptoms of inflammation, so people start to feel better.
Yep.
And so I thought, right, I've got nothing to lose. I'm going to do this. And it was quite difficult at first because the way of healing was to temporarily cut out inflammatory food groups.
Yep.
So
Which is a
things
lot,
like,
right?
yes. So basically, gluten, dairy, sugar, nightshade vegetables, and I didn't actually seek help from anyone to do this. I actually just did it myself off of what I'd read and researched. So it was quite difficult, but I was so determined. And basically, I used to just, the slow cooker was my friend. And
Yes.
I would do a batch cook. My cooking was actually very basic for the week. Um, I would cook separate for myself to what I did for the family, even though the family were pretty easygoing because they knew that I was not really well enough to do anything gourmet. But yeah, I'd put the slow cooker on overnight. So in the morning when I'd wake up, I'd have some, slow cooked meat that I'd done, and I would roast sweet potato, and then I'd have some other kind of vegetables, and I would basically just eat that. um, and that was really the start of my journey into how to gradually heal my body. And so, from that, and there was a lot of trial and error. It wasn't easy by any means.
No.
I'd eat something inadvertently, and then I'd feel like I'd actually almost had a shot of morphine. I'd be so fatigued and so exhausted that I, didn't do anything. So there was a lot of trial and error. But over time, I gradually learnt what my basic triggers for foods were for me. And that's how I managed, how I learnt to bring my body up to a stage where I felt well and had more energy and less pain and things like that.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think a lot of people underestimate the power of foods and how they can heal our body and how much damage they can do in certain times of, like you said, inflammation. I suffer from Crohn's disease. So I've done a similar thing in the past where you've got to cut everything out when I'm having a flare. And it's really hard because almost everything sets you off. And we we're having a conversation before about sugar and additives because
Yeah.
my son is quite sensitive to sugar, as a lot of children are, but he's also hypersensitive to to all additives, colouring and things like that. So something like cheesels will give him eczema and asthma for about 2 days, like quite significant. And
Absolutely, yeah.
also, you know, there's sort of behavioural things that can come up with someone like him who is sort of sensitive to that stuff. So um, can you, so we'll talk, what I want to touch base on, I guess, is you've got a kick sugar workshop, which is one of the things that can cause issues and inflammation specifically
Yeah,
for various different things. And it is, like we were saying in our previous conversation, it's in pretty much everything in the supermarket. So
absolutely, yeah.
do you want to tell us a bit more about your workshop and the detrimental effects, I guess, that sugar can have on the body that you've
Yeah.
seen?
Yeah, sure. Well, I sort of started to do the Kick Sugar workshop, you know, stemming really from my own experience, because I found sugar is one of my triggers. And so when I eat sugar, I get profound pain in my body.
Mm,
And so usually the pain for me will show up in weak areas. So it might be my back is usually the most common
mm,
place. And that's I'm very careful with what I eat in regards to sugar, because I know that if I'm not careful, I can almost be like a cripple some days. And so that's what inspired me to start doing that sort of thing, because I know there's a lot of people out there that suffer from, you know, pain and fatigue and different sorts of things like that, but they're probably not aware that simple things like what they eat can actually be impacting.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, sugar is like, it's a modern day cocaine. It really is like a
Mm,
poison, and people, you know, there's a lot of people out there that are aware that it's not good for us, but they may not be aware that, you know, it's in absolutely everything that we
mm,
eat. And sugar has more than one name. It's not always called sugar. And on the back of the
yes.
food label, you know,
There's
the
something
sugar.
like 20 or 30 different names for it, right?
That's right. So
Yeah.
people are not always familiar with what some of the other names of what sugar are. And so they may
Mm,
look on the back of the packet and it might say 99% sugar free, and it might, you know, have these sneaky little names in it that are
yeah.
actually sugar. So that's why I started doing it. And I found in my experience from the people that attended, you know, they're really absolutely gobsmacked sometimes with what foods have sugar in it, and some foods, or
Mm,
not even foods, but some things that we have, household items that we have, that actually have sugar in it, like toothpaste, for example.
yeah. And we just don't need sugar
You know,
in
and
toothpaste.
what, you know, why would you need sugar in toothpaste?
Yeah.
It's a contradiction, isn't it? So
Yeah. And, you know, that's another thing we're mentioning. I think it's really important to get the awareness out there about the effects of sugar and the extreme amounts that in everything. So I know that tomato paste, for example, I love spaghetti bolognese. And there is most jars, like medium jars, I guess, of tomato paste have roughly 12, I think it was 12 spoonfuls of sugar or more.
yeah,
And you'd use that in your, in say one meal that you're cooking. But if you divvy that up, so each person might get 3 or 4 spoonfuls of sugar just from spaghetti. And you only need a certain amount of sugar per day. And then there's everything else that we eat, and toothpaste and everything else that it's in. So our sugar levels can be so high, and we may not be aware of that. It's like an addiction.
it
Um,
is.
but it
Yeah,
also changes the levels of other things in your body, like magnesium and salt levels, because we need that balance, right, of sugar and salt, at least for our body to remain kind of okay. So, I mean, what other deficiencies can it cause? Do you know of?
well, the biggest impact with sugar is that it affects our blood sugar levels.
Mm,
So that's the biggest thing. So you're seeing that very sudden increase in blood sugar levels, and then that very sudden decrease. So it's a little bit like a roller coaster. So
mm,
when that sudden decrease happens, that's when you start, you know, you get kids that come home hangry, or you start to get the shakes at about 3 p.m. You might have sweating, you might feel anxious or irritable. That's probably the biggest thing. And, it affects nutrients, because with sugar, so say, for example, you mentioned magnesium, we actually use, when we have a lot of sugar in our diet, we actually use a lot of nutrients in our body to process that sugar. So say, for example, let's use magnesium as an example. When we have sugar, it takes about 54 molecules of magnesium to process
Really?
like a small grain of sugar.
Wow.
So
Just a grain of sugar.
yeah, small amounts of
Oh my
sugar.
God. So really,
you
we're
can
all
see
running
how
deficient.
you can see how easily it is for people to become depleted in essential nutrients if they're having too much of that kind of thing, because it's and it's extremely inflammatory.
Yeah.
Our
And then if
body.
people are also on a diet of low salt or no salt, I mean, that's obviously, they might think that they're doing the right thing, but if they have a lot of sugar in their diet, like we said, it's in everything.
And the same for salt as well. Salt is
Mm.
similar. It's in a lot of things as well. So
Yeah, yeah. Look, it's so for listeners out there, I just want to quickly mention there is a film about sugar as well called That Sugar Film, and it's relative to a lot of things that you're saying. And I think it's something that has been brought into the food industry. I think it was in the 1950s, to have that kind of, like you're saying, it's like cocaine. It's that addictive level that they've done the research with to put in everything, so you crave more all the time. So look, what's something you can recommend to people out there to start, I guess, the journey of removing or reducing sugar and anything that might be adding to their ailments, and inflammation in particular, which we've mentioned is the cause for most
yeah,
diseases.
sure. Well, one, if you don't know anything about it, is probably come to something like a Kick Sugar workshop.
Yeah.
But on a day-to-day basis, start by trying to make as many meals as you can from scratch, which I know is difficult, especially for mums. We want something that's quick and easy.
Yeah.
But start becoming aware of, the ingredients in your food. So when you're using sauces or packet mixes and things like that, turn it around and have a look at the ingredients. Now, the more ingredients you can count, the worse it is for you. And I'm talking about numbers, additives, preservatives. And the way ingredients work is they list the ingredients, so from the highest to the lowest. So the first ingredient that you see on the back of the packet in the ingredients is actually has the highest quantity of what's in the food. Okay. So starting to become aware of what it is that's in the sauce or the packet that you're using, and thinking, how can I do this that's a bit healthier for me? So, if you're making spaghetti bowl for the kids, maybe look at spicing it up with adding a tin of tomatoes and maybe using some herbs and garlic and fresh basil and things like that can still give it flavor, but without the the added things like the extra sugar and salt and preservatives and numbers that they're putting in food, because there's a lot of things in there that can make people react, and people are just not aware of some of the symptoms that they get could be related to ingredients in food. So that's a big one. And things that you think are healthy. So vitamin drinks, for example, your Gatorades or your Powerades. There's probably a lot of different ones out there with different names that are similar. They're marketed as a healthy sports drink, but they've probably got between 7 and 9 spoons of sugar in them. If you're encouraging your kids, explain to them kids are not silly. They're actually very receptive. And so what I do with my kids is I actually tell them why I don't want to give them the thing that all their friends are having. And I explain to them what what is happening when they have those things. So, you know, making a drink, encouraging them to have water, and chopping up some nice fruits that they like and adding that to it, or you know, that's other, you know, another a tip that you can do. So yeah, just becoming, you know, the first step is just to becoming aware of what's in the foods that you're eating, and then one by one, as you become more aware, you can start to go, well, what can I substitute, you know, and maybe experiment with a new meal that you can try that doesn't have so many fillers in it that we don't need.
Yeah, and there's just, I mean, and one thing for people, listeners, to note is even baby foods have a lot of these additives and colorings and things. They might market themselves that they don't, but if you do look at the packaging, you can see. So it's definitely the way to go organic and make things yourself as much as you can, as hard as it is. There's ways around it. I mean, you know, making sauces, you can freeze them and put them in the freezer so they stay fresh, and that's a quick and easy thing. You can just chuck it in the pan, frozen, and let it melt. You don't have to recook all the time. So there's certainly ways around it. But look, for listeners out there, so who want to talk to you a bit more and learn a bit more and maybe come to your Kick Sugar workshops, what's the best way to contact you, and what do you have coming up for them to be involved in?
Yeah, sure. So my website is inspiredbyu.net.au. And so over the winter period, I will be running a variety of workshops based on the pillars of wellness. So at the moment, next weekend, I've got coming up a how to manage stress and anxiety workshop. So it's just a nice casual 60 to 90-minute workshop, you know, to give people a little bit of an idea of how stress impacts our bodies and what some simple tools of what we can do to manage that. So I've got that coming up. And, you know, I support a variety of different people through, you know, nutrition and wellness models of care. So a big one is I have a autoimmune program for people that have autoimmune challenges that need that extra support. So that's a 6-week program. And I'm in the process of developing a new program as well, based on the pillars of wellness. So where we would look at, you know, nutrition, sleep, movement, hormones and detox and things like that. So that will be coming up, and soon I will be inviting people to come through the early stages of that. And I'm also on Instagram if people want to follow me there. So that's at Inspired by You Wellness.
Okay, beautiful. It sounds like you got some great workshops, and something a few of them I would be interested in, particularly the immune one, for both my son and I. As I mentioned, we've both got our own sort of issues around that. So look, thank you so much for coming on the show. I think it's been really great talking to you today, and there's a lot of information for listeners to take away. And you've got a wealth of experience in the medical background as well as the nutritional and personal background. So I think you can really offer some wonderful things to people out there. So look, thanks again for coming on the show. I will put all the information below for people to contact you. And yeah, I look forward to seeing what comes up for you next.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Okay. And all the listeners out there will be back again soon with more episodes. Bye.
See you later.